I'm gonna move on to Veggie Week. This is a really fun week. Probably has one of everyone's favorite summer songs, Can, all right? Okay, Veggie Week, lots of fun. We have a lot of fun, creative things happening in Veggie Week, as you see here already with our Veggie boat. It's a really fun story, really fun songs, really fun activities. So the story this week is The Black Beauty, which if you are a gardener, a Black Beauty is a variety of zucchini, which comes into play in our story here. So the story guide here, you have all of your ways to adapt your story, your main characters, all of that. So our story is, they're beginning to do some harvesting in the garden, and I think Hamilton, they were down in the root cellar. Let's see. Yes, and the gnomes, they were starting to prepare their food, and Hamilton was asking about how they keep their food from spoiling. So Rudabug takes Hamilton down to the root cellar and talks about canning. And then Hamilton sees all of their canned foods, and then he asks, what can you can? And then, of course, Rudabug and Thumbkin cue canning can. Tell Hamilton that you can just about anything. And if it fits inside a can, you can can it. And so then they go into the can song, which is so fun. Pickles and tomato sauce, cabbage to sauerkraut. Yes, you can. And so funny, just kind of musical moment there of can. And so it's a great time to talk to your children about food preservation, how things were done before refrigerators, and what a root cellar is, and how things are canned. And of course, I'm sure there's good handfuls of you who are very much into canning and do canning. And so if you are one of those families that do canning already, this is a great way to kind of align your normal canning plans to this week if you can. And if not, we have some really easy canning things that don't require like a pressure canner. So we have the can song, Hamilton learns about canning and food preservation, and then Petty Pom says, come quick, you have to see this, and he takes him to the garden. Now, if you've ever grown zucchinis in your garden, you know that if you forget about them for too long, sometimes you get these massive zucchinis. And when they get massive, what do you do with this massive zucchini? They're not as pleasant texture to eat. They're really seedy, they're kind of spongy, they're kind of big. And so then you just have this giant, massive zucchini. So they find this giant, massive zucchini, and Rudabug's, oh no, how did I miss this? And then Petty Pom is on top of it, and the stem breaks and it rolls down into the pond. Petty Pom's okay. And then they realize it floats. And then Rudabug gets an idea to make a veggie boat. So he's gonna make a zucchini boat out of that zucchini. So he starts hacking, he hoists a cabbage sail, and they make a zucchini boat, and cue Set Sail With Me. That is our sea shanty song from Rudabug. It is really fun. And what I love about this is that it gives sea shanty vibes, it gives sailing vibes without pirates, right? So it's still wholesome, and there's no stealing or pillaging. It's just gnomes on a zucchini boat, but it still gives those fun sailing vibes. So I think it's so much fun. So Set Sail With Me, and zucchini can grow. So if you are growing zucchini in your backyard, maybe choose one to let get really big for this week so you can make a giant zucchini boat. It's really fun. So really, really fun, and then they're sailing away in the pond. And yes, I think they do really float. There is a picture in here of Nathaniel actually, he made the zucchini boat and actually took it to our actual pond with our little gnome dolls and put it in the pond with the gnomes on top. It needed a little bit of balancing, but it floats. So songs this week, Can You Can It, Set Sail With Me. So morning activity, garden harvesting. We did something similar back, of course, for gardening week. Nathaniel, he was propped up. Okay, he confirmed that the zucchini boat was propped. So garden harvesting is our activity this week. If you have a garden, have those children go out, grab a zucchini if you can, harvest whatever you can. And if you don't, I have that same kind of alternate activity. If you can't go out and find a community garden, if you don't have a garden, you can do just foster some gardening play or farmer's market play. You could also go to a farmer's market to pick out some zucchinis. If you want to just kind of encourage the harvesting farmer's market idea, you could do a little farmer's market play inside if you need to stay inside. So lots of ideas there. Of course, if you can get kids out in the garden harvesting, that is ideal. And some fun fun activity in the chat about Nathaniel and engineering zucchini boats. So if anyone does make theirs float, congrats. All right, so grab your zucchinis for day 1, and then we're gonna do some pickling and canning, because of course we have to do some canning while we sing the can song. So we are gonna, I have 2 options here, 2 very simple options. You don't need to actually do pressure canning or even water bath canning. So you can choose or both to do, I have fridge pickles and sauerkraut. Both are very, very simple. Nathaniel said these both turned out great. I personally despise pickles and sauerkraut, so I can't vouch. But other people said that they turned out really well. So fridge pickles, really simple. You're just gonna chop up some cucumbers. You have kind of a salt brine, of course, and fill those up. And then sauerkraut is really simple. It's just cabbage and salt, and you just mash it in there. So I have instructions for both fridge pickles and sauerkraut, and then you just keep them. Fridge pickles, keep in the fridge, they do their thing, and both are really fun. And then of course, if you are a canner, you can also swap this activity with any more advanced canning activities you might want to do with your kids. So choose your canning, right? Then for baking day, our morning activity, you will need multiple zucchinis for canning, for Veggie Week, okay? You're gonna need a zucchini for your veggie boat and a zucchini for your zucchini bread, okay? So just a little note, you're gonna need multiple zucchinis, one like normal size zucchini for your bread, and then if you have a larger one, you can save that for the boat, okay? So morning activity, we're gonna be shredding zucchini. So that's all we're doing with the kids. Good shredding practice, of course, help those little fingers stay out of the way. It's really good kitchen practice to just slow down and help them to shred carefully and point out those safety tips, but really good activity, good strength activity for them, for those little muscles. They tend to have a lot of fun with it. So morning activity is shredding zucchini in preparation for our baking activity later that day. And then our baking activity is zucchini bread. Now this recipe is a recipe that I grew up with. It is my family's absolutely delicious zucchini bread. It is so good. It could arguably be called a zucchini cake because there is a ton of sugar. So this is definitely a treat bread, but I wanted to keep it in because it is just the best zucchini bread ever. It is so good. We do, of course, have refined sugar-free options after this. And I think last year in the summer test group, someone just did less sugar, and that also worked. So choose your sugar content, but if you want it absolutely scrumptious, you can use the recipe as it is, but it's so good, I promise. So adapt if you need, but make the zucchini bread. The tip here, you really do need to beat the zucchini. Like once it's all mixed, you want to really beat it. So if you are doing it in a stand mixer, beat it on medium for like 3 minutes. Or if you're doing it by hand with your kids, it's time for those muscles. Let's like really go, because it releases the moisture from the zucchini to make the batter the right thickness. Because once you start mixing everything together, it'll kind of be still a thick batter. You still want it to be pourable, but you need to like beat the moisture out of that zucchini. So if you're doing it by hand, might be a little bit of a workout. And yes, you could add absolutely anything, add nuts, add chocolate, add anything you want, but it is so yummy. I love that someone's already tried it and it was a hit. Also a note for like portion. In here, in the photo I did it in 1 loaf, and it was a big loaf and it baked for quite a while. So again, watch the bread, not the timer, like use the timer as a guide, but trust the poke. If it's not done, keep it in. You can also distribute this recipe into 2 loaves for 2 smaller, slightly quicker cooking loaves if you want. Either way, it depends on how tall you want your loaf, but this one was a pretty nice and tall loaf. It baked for a long time. And so if you want to use a standard loaf pan, it will fit, it'll just be tall, or you could split it up for 2 kind of smaller ones, your choice, but just know that if you do it in 1 pan, it might feel like it takes forever. That's normal, but just wait until that poke comes out clean. Trust the bread, okay? So, but it's delicious, I promise. Okay, then our day 3 morning activity, super simple. We're gonna break out the sidewalk chalk again, do some gross motor drawing, summertime style. And then day 3, our main lesson, here we have it, zucchini boats. Oh, this of course was Nathaniel's idea. He really wanted this to happen and he made it happen. And it's really fun. So we have some guidelines on how to construct your veggie boat. But of course, this is also just a really fun creating, building activity. Your children can go crazy with however they want it to look. Kind of like our pumpkin houses back in autumn, a fun like construction creative activity. So have your zucchini and you can kind of hollow out a little bit. You can use asparagus, some carrots as the bow, have some cabbage or lettuce on hands, and toothpicks. Cherry tomatoes are great too. So I'll kind of walk you through these steps so you have it. Here in step 2, you see a little carrot bow being secured in place by a toothpick. And Nathaniel lined the 2 edges of the zucchini with asparagus, and you pluck them, you poke the little toothpicks in, and then you can trim the tops off carefully if you want. And so then you can kind of see how that looks. And then for the mast, just stick that little toothpick right in the middle and then put that celery, nice little celery stalk right in the middle. And then you can see here how you can use the toothpick to secure some cabbage leaves. I think this will be easier to look at your actual real book. So look at these and just kind of see. They also topped any of the exposed toothpicks with cherry tomatoes that were really cute. If you want to get fancy, you can add multiple sails. You can add strings to hold the sails up. They're really, really fun. And then of course later, if you want to save, there's actually some zucchini boat recipes, like dinner recipes. You can fill a zucchini with I don't know, pasta or something. There's recipes. If you go on Pinterest and look zucchini boats, you'll get dinner recipes and not zucchini ships. So you can use your zucchini boats to make zucchini boats if you want to later. So have fun with this one. It's a blast. And then, yeah, enjoy.